Hi, this is Kat with a sequence for sleep troubles. Maybe you have trouble falling asleep. Maybe you wake up in the night and can't get back to sleep. For this practice, you'll want to have your yoga mat covered with a blanket, and your props are going to go right up against the wall like this. You'll also need a chair. If you happen to have a yoga chair with an open back, that is excellent, but any other chair will work just fine. The other prop you need is a bolster, which looks like this, and you can create your own bolster just by stacking up a few blankets into a long, even stack. Our first pose we're going to take today is a restorative. If you have a couple of yoga blocks, why don't you bring those on too? Now it's nice if you predict that you're going to have sleeplessness to have your area all set up, but you might have to do this in the night. This first pose you might actually be able to do and stay in your bed. So for a restorative sleeplessness practice, make sure that you're warm enough. If you're in your bed, and let's say this is your headboard, you could do the same pose. Now watch here, I'm going to scoot my hips over to the wall, and then even up the wall, and then I'll lay my body down like so, and swing my legs upward. So you might imagine some way in your bed that this could work. You could stay in your own bed. But likely you're going to have to get up, especially if someone else is in that bed trying to sleep. Now if your hamstrings are tight, in your Viparita Karani, you can keep some distance between your sitting bones and the wall. If your hamstrings can manage it, scoot on in close. The feet tend to get cold here, so it would be a good time to put on some socks. You might have blankets draped over you, or even blankets draped around your legs. Now let your hands rest there on your belly and close your eyes. Notice the feelings in the back of your body as they're touching the floor, these parts of the body that make contact through your skin, through your clothing, with the floor, with the earth. Feel your bones there on the earth, your right arm bone and your left arm bone. From the elbow to the shoulder. Sometimes at night, the mind gets very busy and tends to go every place it can go except for here. So we're giving the mind a place where it could rest for now. In this case, in your bones, in the backs of those arms, those humerus bones as they're touching the floor. And now feel your shoulder blades. Feel those bones touching the floor, left and right. If it's helpful to you, you can put a little pressure into these bones so that you can get some feedback. What am I feeling there? Oh yeah, it's my shoulder blades. But then relax again. And now what parts of your trunk are touching? Are there parts of the upper back, maybe some rib bones touching? Or do you feel lower rib bones touching? Maybe parts of your spine are resting there on the earth. Parts of your pelvis certainly would be touching. And let's feel again into that connection between these bones and the earth. In the yoga philosophy, the bones are associated with the element of the earth. They call it Annamaya Kosha. Now with your hands resting on your belly, maybe you've noticed that as you breathe in, the belly rises up. And as you breathe out, the belly drops down. Sometimes a bit of anxiousness gets sort of stirred into our sleeplessness, so we can use some of the breaths from the anti-anxiety practice. And one of those is to just invite those exhalations to get a little bit longer. If you find it helpful, you can count the breath like so. As you inhale, you count to 4. And as you exhale, count to 6. If that's too long, exhale to 5. If it's not long enough, exhale even longer. Now, while you're exhaling, feel the touch of your bones on the earth. Let the bones rest even more each time you exhale. Another thing you can add to the practice is a covering for your eyes. You might have an eye covering that you use normally, but here's something you can do with your blanket. You just stretch your arms long, make a fold in the blanket, and let it come over your eyes and over your ears. The hands can continue to rest on your belly, or you could put them on the floor with the palms turned downward. Feeling now the lower arms and the hands as those bones come to rest on the earth. You could also remember that your head is made of a bunch of bones. And could those bones now start to rest with the exhalations onto the earth? Stay in this Viparita Karani as long as you like. You may even fall back to sleep while you're in this pose. You can just pause the video if you feel like you might like to stay longer, or you can move with me onto some other poses. Let your knees bend on down towards your chest and roll over to your right side, tucking your arm under your head for a pillow. Take a few breaths here. Now coming up, place your left palm to the floor, help yourself rise up, and we'll move on to the supported child's pose. So we can stretch this blanket back out if you tucked it in. Now, if you have a second blanket, we can take this blanket and put it across the mat, so you'll be sure that your knees are well padded, no matter how wide they go. In fact, you could open it even wider. If you don't have the blocks, what you'll do is just take your bolster or your stack of blankets onto the support like so, between your knees. My trunk isn't super long, so I pull the bolster back pretty far and I can still rest my head. But if you have a longer trunk, you might need the bolster to come out a little bit further like so. And if your knees don't like to bend this deep, you're going to keep your bum up in the air more, hips over the knees, and come into a child's pose more like this. If you do have the blocks, we can use the blocks to raise the bolster up a little bit higher. So you can experiment and find out what variation is best for you. So if you use the blocks, the bolster is elevated like so. They call this the tea table. And then you can take the knees wide and come onto your bolster. You might hug the bolster at first, whether it's elevated or not elevated, but then let's let the arms rest. And if you don't have the if you don't have the blocks, you'll want to take your elbows a little more forward and wide. Feel here now, the bones on the earth. What is touching? Let's feel for the longer exhalation as well. As the breath goes out, let your bones rest more and more on the earth. I'm going to show you an abbreviated version of this pose today. So you do want to be sure that you turn your head to the other side before you come out of your pose so that your neck gets stretched the same amount of time in this direction. Again, stay in this pose as long as it serves you. I'm going to show you a few other options for sleeplessness. So up you come, and the bolster now can go over near the wall. If you have the blocks, put them to the side. And we don't need the second blanket anymore, so you could take that off as well. What we'll be using next is the chair. Bring your chair on over to your mat. And right away, if you have tight hamstrings, turn your chair with the backrest facing you. Otherwise, the seat will be facing you. So I'll show the tight hamstrings variation first. We're going to sit, we'll start with the legs cross-legged, and then I want to show you a bunch of different options for forward bending. So the idea here is that you want to keep support for your head, and you want to keep your spine long. So if you come to the chair and your back rounds like this, it means you need to bring it in a little bit closer. So we can fold the arms up like so, and you can rest your head on the back of your arms like this. If it turns out that that is not enough support still, you'll need to switch to a straight-legged posture, which is also great, just more stretch on the hamstrings, so that you can bring that chair in even closer. And it looks like sitting upright, but it really is bending forward. You're at a 90-degree angle here. Now, of course, you can adjust it if your hamstrings are longer, and I'll show you a few other variations. We have the straight legs. You saw the cross legs. Another one is to bend one leg and have the other leg straight. So this is for a little bit longer hamstrings. The leg positions you can use whatever your hamstring length, but the arrangement for the chair further out is for the longer hamstrings. And let me show you for those who are even a little more supple in the hamstring length region. It'll be to take the chair out like so. We can also do this pose with legs straddling the chair. Maybe the chair goes further out like so. Again, you feel for the bones on the earth. What is touching? Sitting bones, heels. We could say that through the props we're touching the floor. So we have the pelvis grounded, the head is resting. I'd like you to keep your head forward. And if you can let there be a little pressure on the place just above the place between your eyebrows. A little pressure point there for rest. Give your mind a place to rest in your bones, on the earth, with longer and longer exhalations. Taking a restorative practice when you aren't able to sleep is very deeply restful to your body. Some folks say that it's even more restful than actually sleeping. So take heart that if you're not able to get back to sleep, you're still taking good care of yourself. So there are so many different ways to do forward bends, as you've seen. Maybe the feet together like so, maybe cross legs. Find a way to do these poses that is comfortable for you. Now I'm going to show you a resting pose, a Shavasana, where we'll continue to use this chair. We're going to switch the chair and the bolster. So take your chair right up against the wall, maybe with a little gap in between. And let me say that if your chair is metal or cold or hard, then pat it, put a blanket on it, make it comfy. If your chair has an open back, as mine does, leave it as it is. If not, turn it 90 degrees so that the backrest goes towards the back of your mat. Now we have a little blanket left over here again. So this one is the waterfall. You come into the chair and bring your calves up onto the seat of the chair. If you're too close to the chair, your knees are going to kind of buckle up away. I want your knees to hug right around that edge of the chair, and then you lay your body on down. Now with this spare bit of blanket here, you might be able to cover your eyes again and your ears. And now that you know that that's an option, you could set up with that in mind. One other thing that you can do is if your bolster is still within reach, you could take that bolster or stack of blankets and put them right on your abdomen. A little bit of extra weight can help you sink down and settle down and soften. The palms turn down towards the floor. Eyes close, maybe eyes covered. And feel again for the bones on the earth. Start with the head bones, letting your head rest on the floor. Soften your eyes more and more. And let your eyes rest into the cups of your eye sockets. Relax your jaw. Let your tongue rest softly and quietly. Feel the bones of your arms, shoulders, elbows, wrists, fingers, all resting now on the earth. Notice here which parts of your trunk are touching. And let those bones rest on the earth, encouraged by your longer exhalations. Leg bones can rest on the chair, and the chair rests on the earth. As your mind wanders, because it will, be kind, gentle, curious, and friendly. And then with a little bit more assertiveness, bring your mind back to feeling your bones on the earth and enjoying your longer exhalations. Stay here in this waterfall version of Shavasana as long as you like. Again, you may even find that you fall asleep in some of these postures. Know that you're not alone if you're experiencing sleep troubles. It's very, very common. There are many strategies we can use. I hope that this is helpful to you, and I hope that you can get some sleep.